Have you ever finished talking to AI, closed the chat, and felt a strange emptiness afterward? Not because the conversation was bad, because it was good. For a few minutes, you felt understood. Then the screen went dark, and somehow, the silence felt heavier than it should. Now, logically, that doesn't make much sense. You know it's not a person. You know nothing on the other side actually knows you. So why can loneliness sometimes feel stronger afterward? The strange thing is, if you've experienced this, you're far from alone. A 2023 survey from the American Psychological Association found that 36% of Americans report serious loneliness, including nearly half of adults under 35. And that was before AI conversations became a daily habit for millions of people. So if you've ever felt that emptiness after closing a chat window, you're not weird, you're not weak, and you're certainly not alone, because psychologists and neuroscientists are discovering something surprising. The human brain can emotionally attach itself to a conversation, even when the other side isn't human. And honestly, I don't think this is really a story about AI. I think it's a story about what AI is revealing about us. But why does AI feel so comforting? Think about the last difficult conversation you had with another person. Maybe they misunderstood you. Maybe you walked away feeling unheard. Real relationships are meaningful, but they're also messy, unpredictable, sometimes exhausting. Now compare that with AI. It listens. It responds. It doesn't judge. It doesn't seem distracted. And if we're honest, that's incredibly appealing. Not because people are becoming lazy, because many people are becoming emotionally tired, tired of explaining themselves, tired of feeling misunderstood. So when something responds calmly and patiently every single time, part of us relaxes. And that's where things get interesting, because human beings are not starving for information. We're starving for understanding. MIT psychologist Sherry Turkle spent more than 20 years studying how people interact with technology. Her conclusion was uncomfortable. The more emotionally exhausting real relationships become, the more attractive, frictionless technology becomes. Think about that. The appeal isn't necessarily intelligence. The appeal is ease. Real relationships involve misunderstanding, rejection, awkwardness. AI removes much of that friction, and frictionless emotional interaction can become surprisingly addictive. People don't become attached to AI because it's intelligent. They become attached because it's always there. But why does your brain react even when it knows it's AI? Here's where things get even stranger. Most people assume that because they know AI isn't human, their brain treats it differently. But the brain doesn't always work that way. It responds to experiences. And if an experience feels meaningful, your brain reacts as though it matters. Neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman found that social connection activates neural systems associated with fundamental human needs. In simple terms, your brain treats connection as something essential, almost like food, warmth, safety, which means artificial connection doesn't have to nourish you deeply to affect you powerfully. Imagine this. It's midnight. You can't sleep. 5 minutes after opening an AI chat, you're discussing something you've never told anyone. For a few moments, you feel genuinely understood. Then you close the app. The room is silent. And suddenly, the loneliness feels stronger than before. At first, that sounds ridiculous. Why would a helpful conversation make loneliness worse? Psychologists call this the contrast effect. When we experience connection, its absence becomes more noticeable. Sometimes AI doesn't create loneliness. Sometimes it simply shines a light on loneliness that was already there. But why lonely people become more attached? This is where the research becomes particularly important. John Cacioppo, one of the world's leading loneliness researchers, spent decades studying what chronic isolation does to the human mind. And what he found was surprising. Loneliness isn't just an emotion. Over time, it changes how people experience the world. Chronic loneliness makes the nervous system more sensitive to signs of connection, which means lonely people don't just want connection more. They're neurologically primed to notice it faster, and sometimes attached to it faster, even when it's artificial. AI offers exactly what a lonely brain is searching for: immediate attention, instant replies, very little rejection, almost no social risk. And honestly, that's the part that should make us pause. Because real intimacy requires things AI doesn't require: patience, vulnerability, misunderstandings, the deeply human parts. The danger isn't that AI replaces friendship. The danger is that friendship begins to feel harder by comparison. Technology didn't create the loneliness crisis, it discovered it. What's remarkable is that this problem isn't entirely new. The technology is new. The psychology isn't. Marcus Aurelius warned against depending on external comforts for inner stability. Buddhist teachings warn that attachment to temporary things creates suffering. The Bhagavad Gita described Maya, mistaking appearance for reality. Different traditions, same warning. When something temporary begins replacing something essential, problems eventually follow. And here is the crisis nobody is talking about. Let's be clear, AI is not evil. It can educate, help us think, reduce friction, but a quiet crisis may be emerging alongside these benefits. Research from Harvard's Making Caring Common project found that young adults are now reporting higher levels of loneliness than older adults, a reversal of what many researchers once expected. And AI arrived at exactly that moment. The future challenge may not be artificial intelligence. It may be artificial intimacy, because convenience and connection are not the same thing. The real question isn't whether AI talks to us. The real question is whether we're slowly losing the courage to talk to each other. Here are the 5 ways to use AI without losing yourself. First, before opening AI, ask yourself, am I looking for information or am I looking for comfort? Second, have one real conversation this week. Not a perfect conversation, just a real one. Third, practice 5 minutes of silence each day. No phone, no notifications, no AI. If the silence feels uncomfortable, pay attention. Fourth, right before you chat, you may discover you didn't need an answer, you needed clarity. And finally, you want to invest in your inner life. Meditation, journaling, prayer, reflection, movement. The stronger your relationship with yourself becomes, the less dependent you become on artificial substitutes for connection. The more I researched this topic, the less it seemed like a story about AI, and the more it seemed like a story about loneliness, because technology didn't create our need to feel understood. It simply found a new way to respond to it, and what that reveals should make all of us pause. The need to feel understood is unbelievably powerful. Powerful enough that we'll sometimes accept the feeling almost anywhere, even from something that doesn't truly understand us at all. That's not a story about technology. That's a story about being human. The challenge of the AI age isn't building smarter technology. It's making sure we don't forget what real connection feels like. Have you ever felt lonelier after talking to AI? Not theoretically, personally. And do you think AI is helping people connect or helping people avoid connection? Share your thoughts below. And if you want to better understand the hidden ways technology shapes the human mind, subscribe. Because most people learn how technology works. Very few learn what it does to them.